Hey everybody, welcome back to Old Bearded Gaming. We are bringing you part 4 of our Octopode Summoner series here, jumping back into the dungeon, going after the very last rune, the golden rune, to make a complete 15 rune run. This recording comes from my Vividos account, which is kind of my trial and error account for playing around with things, but it turned out to be so good we had to turn the recording on here at the end, and that's where we pick up the action right here in Tomb 1, getting ready to go down to Tomb 2. Just a quick check of the gear, looking over the consumables, very important for this last and final push to know exactly what you have, where you're standing, what your resistances are. And as you can see, we really aren't sporting all that amazing of artifact rings, to be perfectly honest. We do have some okay mutations from our Lord and Savior Jiva. Slime for the Slime God. I'm just saying, it's worth it. So let's set up the action. For those that don't know, Tomb 2 is very similar to Vault 5 in that there is a surrounding trap, more or less, waiting for you once you go down the stairs. As you can see from the skills, we've capped out Necromancy, Air Magic, Unarmed Combat, Fighting and Dodge are very close as well. The key difference from the way we've handled parts 1 through 3 with getting Stormform online is that because of the Necromancy and having Death's Door, we have an added tool in the toolbox for how we play basically the rest of the game and anything else you want to do. Death's Door, which we're going to pop right now as we go down, is like the ultimate self-inflicted torment, but it makes us completely invulnerable for a good number of terms. No matter what happens, we can't take any more damage than we already have. There's no reason to panic. We read a scroll. We're allowing things to come in, get a little bit closer, and we're going to choose to light this party off, very similar to how my preferred method is for doing Vault 5, even though Stormform is a little quieter and cleaner, and that's going to be going with the Scroll of Immolation. No big surprises here. We read the scroll, we set everybody off, the chain reaction happens, and it's really just kind of a sit back and watch the gloriousness of that which is very big booms. Bada boom, if you will. This is fantastic. Everything's catching fire. We've got a number of folks from the outside, a Royal Mummy there coming up from the southwest, a couple up top that did not get tagged with the scroll. We actually choose to pop a second scroll here. We got enough players on the field that don't have the immolation status, and we've got enough of them in our inventory. And honestly, there's nothing else that I'm ever going to use them on. So it makes perfect sense here to go ahead and pop them, spam some of that Manifold Assault just to trigger some of them on the outside, and just keep the explosion going. It's a good time. As we're playing, we're just being mindful of the D door status there in the top right. It's currently a bright white. Once it turns to a gray like it just has, we now have a limited number of turns before that's going to wear off. So we're going to pop a scroll blinking that we know we have, get up there to where the exit is, which we know where it is because we used the magic mapping earlier. The important thing about Death's Door is making sure that you escape in a situation like this prior to Death's Door wearing off. Should it wear off before you go through, there's a possibility, even with our amazing evasion, that you could take a hit, and with having only a dozen or so hit points, it can absolutely be a game over. So this is kind of how Death's Door works. You come back through, you heal back up, you go back down, you pop Death's Door again. We're actually going to do the same trick here because we still have a couple scrolls of immolation. Why not? What else am I going to spend them on? We pop one here, light everybody up, and once again start the chain reaction. There are other spells that we could combine with this, but it's really just kind of overkill at this point. I mean, absolutely, we could use Death Channel, make some ghost friends for us. We could use Infestation, make a whole bunch of scarabs, but at this point, what's the point? There's nothing else for us to really kind of fight. We're down to onesie twosies, which are easily handleable by the Stormform and Manifold Assault combo that we had used to blaze through all of Part 3 in the series and most of Part 2 once we got it online, if you saw those previous episodes. That combination still works, even this late in the game, to handle just about anything you're going to want to come across. The Death's Door just gives us kind of an added tool again in that toolbox to be able to handle some really, really dangerous situations and make them a complete non-issue. So with fighting, dodging, necro, air, and unarmed combat completely maxed out, there really isn't much else for us to focus on. I mean, put your points wherever you like. In this particular run, we decided not to go do any Zigguarts. I was really just kind of pleased about the solidity of how this 15 rune run was going to turn out, which, again, once we clear this out here, we get down to clear out the inner space in Tomb 1 so that we can get to these kind of walled off sections over here to go down into Tomb 3 and finish this run out. It is very viable to take this and go complete an entire Ziggurat. There is no problem with doing that whatsoever. Potential a little bit of a change up to some of the spells that maybe you bring in there, right? But honestly, even a very full room Ziggurat you can probably handle with Death's Door, Death Channel, Manifold Assault, and Stormform. There's just really not that much that's really going to give you that hard of a time about any of it. Now, I've answered a couple questions that I've received recently on the Reddit and in DMs asking, hey, is it worth it to level up unarmed combat and take it all the way to the max? Now, some folks have noted and insisted that really it's not necessary, that you really aren't getting that much of a benefit if you're using Stormform. But I disagree. So the way the calculation for unarmed combat works, right, in combination with Stormform, is you're getting a combination of everything to your base damage, and then modifiers happen after that as a result of things like strength, fighting, slaying, etc., right? So the base damage of unarmed combat is 3. You also add 1 point to that for every point in unarmed combat. That leaves us to 30 base damage points. We add to that the damage that we get from Stormform, which is a calculation very simple. Spell power, in our case, it's only about 70%, divided by 3 plus 2. Okay, so we're adding another, call it 35 points or so, to a base damage of 65. And that's quite a lot. It would not be that high. It would almost be in half if I didn't have any unarmed combat. Okay, so it's definitely worth it to level that up because that base damage is getting inflated because of it. That base damage calculation then gets multiplied by the bonuses that you get for strength and fighting and slaying, etc. So, well, excuse me, not slaying. Slaying is just an add just to the base end. But there's an additional bonus that I think gets overlooked a lot when it comes to unarmed combat, and that is the delay of your swings. So there's not much gain in terms of reduction of swing speed until you actually start to get it capped out. And once you hit 27, you are at 0.5, which is literally twice as fast as anything that's at a 1.0. So very, very important to level up your unarmed combat, and you're going to see a massive difference if you do. So now we're going down into Tomb 3, the last really difficult level of anything of note in this 15 rune run. We're treating it just like we did coming down into Tomb 2. We've popped everything. We've even used some Might Scrolls, Brilliant Scrolls, a Resistance, right? I put Animate Dead on there, really kind of in error. It won't do anything to the already dead, so, but it didn't really cost us anything. We have a ton of magic points and a lot of regeneration, so no big issue there. But we treat this pretty much exactly the same as we do anything else. So, I mean, we're coming in here, we're playing around with infestation, right? We've got enough enemies here that it makes sense to, while we're using Stormform and Manifold Assault to kill stuff at range, go ahead and make an army of Death Scarabs. These things are great. They actually hit pretty decently. They keep me protected, keep stuff away from me. They interrupt line of sight potentially. You know, it can get a little tricky down here to say the least. From the regular mobs down here, the mummy priests, the royal mummies, etc., your biggest fear is once you've killed them is that there's a chance that you're going to get hit with torment. If you have anything that can negate that or give you torment resistance, all the better for it. But just understand, torment is not going to kill you. It's only going to take a portion of your hit points away, but it's never actually going to take you down to 0. The real risk happens if you get too far down, and then you're susceptible to something like a random ranged attack, or somebody gets a lucky melee through that amazing 55 evasion that we have, right? It can happen. Don't think you're completely untouchable in this form. To be honest, though, everything here felt calm, at ease. I really didn't feel that in danger of anything, even with Sentinel's Mark on having half my magic and half my hit points. There's just nothing overtly challenging here. It's just keep killing everything. We even stopped to kind of take a peek at the amazing treasure, of which we can use hardly any of it. It wasn't even really worth it to look over it. In fact, this whole Tombs 3 room almost kind of confuses me a little bit. There's so much gold down here, so many artifacts, so many just interesting and conceptually fun pieces of gear that if you're down here, there's nothing left for you to use it on. I mean, getting through Zod is nothing once you've done 15 runes and done all of Hell and Pandemonium, etc. So it's not like any of this stuff was going to be game changing. I suppose a case could be made that if you were able to get down here much sooner in the earlier game, and potentially it could be possible to come down here and actually snipe some of this gear, maybe even with the Apparition spell to pick up a couple choice pieces, right? And then book it out of here. I could see that. But most folks don't tend to go for it just because it is kind of a hard time and you really got to have things set up to be able to do it. Now the big bad down here is going to make his appearance pretty quickly here, and that's Khufu. Khufu is basically a souped up version of the royal mummies. He is the undying pharaoh, more or less, and there he is. He's got kind of a neat little hair thing and a staff, but again, nothing to really super worry about here. He can summon scorpions, he can smite you, obviously torment. Does have a blink as well, and of course they can summon scarabs, but I've kind of got my own army of them here. We didn't even need to use MCC. We just straight up let the scarabs hit them and then pop a couple manifold assaults. Just again, nothing super crazy. And if it does get a little overwhelming and you're running low on magic points and hit points are getting kind of down, you can go up the exit, completely heal back up, just like we did now, and go back down and rinse repeat. And it's actually going to take you into a different location, that starting area, versus the area of where you came up. So you get the benefit of actually being kind of removed from if there was a swarming situation that you were unable to handle. All in all, I think the concept of the Octopode Summoner is super, super amazing. I know I've said it throughout my other parts. I've mentioned it on the Reddit as well and in video descriptions, but ONEI's guide to playing the Felid Summoner, obviously the massive inspiration for all this. Total props to them and their efforts for really bringing to light this unbelievably fun combination to play. Mixing it up and going Octopode, just kind of a bit of a turn of flavor. But I'll be perfectly honest, I don't think there's really any species that you couldn't use Summoner as a starting class in 0.29 and make it work and get all the way to the end. We've picked up the final rune. We now have all 15. You see the list there on the screen. I thought about doing kind of a little bit of a victory lap here and going through and picking up the loot and stuff before the slimes, kind of start having their way with all of it, such as the case when we worship Jiva. But I decided against it because honestly, none of this matters. The gold is unspendable. None of the gear is useful. Maybe there's an artifact piece of jewelry there, but at this point we've functionally beaten everything we wanted to beat in this game with some relatively, lackluster artifact pieces of jewelry. I think our best pieces, 2 out of the 8 were particularly good. One had a +9 intelligence, but like a -5 strength. And another one had like a +5 slay with a little bit of a negative as well, contamination. I think a couple of the rings had slow on it. So, I mean, again, you don't have to get super lucky with the gear. And to be perfectly honest, some of the best rings that got me through this were rings of wizardry, rings of magical power, just to get stuff online, a little bit faster and sooner. Of course, the +2 intelligence rings and even +strength rings, because every little bit of strength that you add, and we only have 14 while we're in storm form here. That's nothing. You could have quite a bit more if you play your rings right, and you end up a little bit luckier, which is all going to add to that base damage of the unarmed combat, and Stormform is going to capitalize on that. You see us down here in Zot 5, right here getting ready to pick up the orb, and we're just having fun with it at this point. Orbs of fire mean nothing. Ancient liches, I don't even bat an eye at them. We're not even blitzbolting to any of these things because they're just a non-issue. Nothing bad is going to happen to us here. Manifold Assault is taking care of stuff. Yeah, we're spamming it quite a bit. We're running low on magic, but you know what? I've got some potions if I really need it. We actually, I think, end up using one just because. But this is the victory lap. An army of my own orb guardians. We've picked up the orb. And I won't bore you with the escape out. It was incredibly easy and non-confrontational, to be honest. So there it is, folks. This is just a quick video, like I said, as promised, to show you this is very viable, obviously, for the extended game. Full 15 runes with nothing super amazing. Lots of consumables still left over. We didn't even cast a single wand except for maybe a digging here or there. But those certainly could have done it. And this was good enough for top 20. Okay, I actually didn't realize it was going to be that good of a score. And it obviously could have been way better. This was not played optimally, but I appreciate everybody hanging out with Old Bearded Gaming. The morgue file is in the video description. Check it out if you want to see more. But until next time, take care.